I don't think the women of Loma Linda had better genes than your mother. I think it was something much plainer than genes, and much more within your reach. They kept a single habit in their kitchens, a way of running the whole day, that the rest of America quietly threw in the bin somewhere around 1960. And that one habit is a very large part of why a woman in that town could reach 90, 95, still slim, still walking herself to church, in a country where almost everyone her age had spent 30 years slowly gaining weight they could never take back off. It was not the genes, it was the clock. And I want to be careful here, because you've heard the Loma Linda story before. For a long, that part is real. But I've come to think it's not the part that actually fell apart in the rest of the country. Loma Linda is the one spot in the whole United States that Dan Buettner mapped as a blue zone, a place where people just plainly outlive everyone around them. And when you look hard at what broke everywhere else, it wasn't the beans people stopped eating. What fell apart was when they ate, and how often, and how long they left the kitchen closed at night. So stay with me, because I'm going to give you the whole habit in 4 pieces, one at a time. And the last piece is the one almost nobody in America does anymore. And it's the one doing the most work. Get something to write with. This costs nothing, and you could start it tomorrow morning. Here's the first piece. And it's the one that sounds most upside down to a modern ear. They ate their biggest meal at breakfast. Not a piece of toast eaten standing up over the sink. A real meal, the largest plate of the whole day, first thing, when the sun was barely up. There's an old line the older women in that community used to say, and versions of it turn up all through that generation. Eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and supper like a pauper. They took it literally. The heavy food went in early, when the body was awake and moving, and had a whole day of activity ahead to actually burn it. And it's worth slowing down on what that breakfast actually was, because a modern ear hears big breakfast and pictures a tower of pancakes swimming in syrup, and that's not it, not even close. Picture the table instead. A pot of oats, the coarse, steel-cut kind that has to be cooked slow, gone thick and soft on the stove, with walnuts stirred through it and cut fruit on top, a banana or some stewed prunes or whatever the season handed you. A couple of slices of dense whole grain bread, the heavy sort that actually chews, maybe a little nut butter, a bowl of berries. Water, not juice. It was a working plate, built to carry a body through a morning of standing and lifting and being on its feet. And it was eaten sitting down, slow, at a real table, while the light was still coming up gray in the windows. Nobody ate this over the sink. Nobody ate it in the car on the way to anything. It went in early, and it went in properly. And then the kitchen went quiet for hours. And this isn't folklore. There are real names on it. 2 researchers at Loma Linda, Hanna Kaliova and Gary Frazier, went through the Adventist Health Study there. More than 50,000 people whose eating had been tracked for years, and they published what they found in 2017 in the Journal of Nutrition. The people who ate their largest meal in the morning were the ones whose weight drifted down over the years. The ones who saved their biggest meal for the night drifted up. Same food. Near enough the same amount. Different clock. And the clock won. Now, why would the same plate of food do something different at 7 in the morning than it does at 7 at night? Because your body is not the same machine at both ends of the day. In the morning it's primed, insulin working sharp and clean, ready to take the fuel from a big meal and send it straight into the muscles to be burned. By night, that whole system has gone sleepy and slow, and the exact same food, eaten late, gets shunted off into storage instead, onto the waistline, because there's no day left to burn it off. The women of Loma Linda fed the fire in the morning when it was roaring. Modern America saves its biggest meal for the moment the fire's already going out. That one reversal, breakfast against dinner, is worth years on the scale. And it doesn't cost you a penny or a single missed calorie. The second piece of the habit is even simpler, and it's the exact thing America lost, and I can almost put a date on it. They did not snack, there was breakfast, and there was lunch, and between those 2 meals, the kitchen was closed. No nibbling. No little something at 10, no little something at 3, no handful of this while making the dinner. The mouth was shut between meals. And everybody understood that was simply how eating worked. Now think about what happened to this country right around 1960. The television set moved into the middle of the living room. The TV dinner arrived. The supermarket aisles filled up with things in bright packages, built to be eaten straight from the box, at any hour, and a new idea took hold, quietly, that a good mother kept the house full of snacks, and that being a little bit hungry was a problem to be fixed immediately. The refrigerator got bigger. The snacking never stopped after that. Today, the average American gets around a quarter of all their calories from food eaten between meals. A quarter, a whole extra meal's worth, grazed in across the day, that nobody in Loma Linda in 1955 was eating at all. And it's worth naming exactly what came in to replace that closed kitchen, because it didn't sneak in slowly. In 1953, a company called Swanson put the first TV dinner on the market, a whole meal in a metal tray you ate off your lap in front of the television, and they sold something like 10 million of them in the first year alone. The bigger refrigerator and the home freezer followed it right into the American kitchen, so there was always something on hand, always something thawing. By 1961, a brand new president, John Kennedy, was so alarmed at how soft and heavy the country had gotten that he was pushing a national fitness program to try to turn it around. That's how fast it happened. Inside of about 10 years, a country that ate 3 meals at a table and shut the kitchen in between became a country that ate all day long, off trays, in front of a screen, with the fridge always full and the door always swinging. Loma Linda, quietly, off in its own corner, simply never signed up for any of it. And something else crept into American life in those same years that had barely existed before, and once you notice it, you can't stop noticing it. The snack, as its own separate kind of food, is a modern invention. Walk into a grocery in 1935, and there was no aisle for it. There were ingredients, and there were the meals you made out of them, and that was the whole store. By the middle of the century, a whole wall of the supermarket had been handed over to things that belonged to no meal at all, engineered to be torn open, one-handed, and eaten at any hour, standing up, without a plate, without even really stopping whatever you were doing. Chips. Crackers, by the box. Little cakes sealed in cellophane, a dozen to a carton, that a child could open alone. Then the vending machines spread down every workplace hall and every school corridor, so a person was never more than a few steps and a couple of coins away from eating again. And trailing right behind all of it came the idea, soft and unspoken, that this was simply normal now, that a good day had food scattered all through it, that the quiet, empty stretch between meals, the very stretch that whole town was still living inside, was a kind of suffering you were meant to reach out and fix the second you felt the first pang of it. And here's why that one change did so much damage, and it comes back to the same quiet character running through this whole story. Insulin. Every single time food touches your tongue, even a small thing, even a handful of crackers, your body has to raise insulin to deal with it. Insulin is the hormone that says, store this, put it away. And here's the trap, almost nobody's told. As long as insulin is up, your body physically cannot reach for the fat it's already carrying and burn it. The door is locked, so the woman who eats breakfast and lunch and nothing in between gives her body 2 long, quiet stretches every day where insulin falls all the way down. The door swings open, and the body finally turns around and burns its own fat for hours. The woman who grazes from breakfast to bedtime never once opens that door. Insulin never comes down. Her body spends the whole day in storage mode, and she can't understand why the weight won't move, even though she swears she barely eats a real meal. She doesn't. She just never stops eating small ones. That's the whole difference. And it arrived, for most families, right around 1,960. And I have to stop right here and take on the piece of advice that did the most damage of all, because a lot of you were told the exact opposite of everything I'm saying, and it came dressed in all the authority of science. For 30 years, the popular wisdom was that you should eat 6 small meals a day. Graze. Keep the metabolism stoked like a little furnace, they said. Never once let yourself feel hungry. A small snack every couple of hours keeps the fat-burning humming along. It sounded so reasonable. Millions of women followed it faithfully, packing their little bags of almonds and rice cakes, eating every 2 hours on the dot, and quietly getting heavier year after year while doing everything they'd been told. Here's what that same Loma Linda analysis showed, in black and white. The people who ate fewer times a day, just 1 meal or 2, were the ones who got leaner. The people who ate 3 or more times, and every snack counts as one of those times, were the ones who gained. The grazing never stoked any furnace. All it ever did was hold that insulin door propped wide open all day long, so the body never got one quiet hour to turn around and burn its own fat. 6 small meals a day was one of the most confidently wrong things this whole country was ever taught about food, and an entire generation paid for it, right around the middle. The women of Loma Linda never heard it, or never believed it, and their bodies were the proof standing right there in church on a Sunday morning. And it's worth knowing where that advice even came from, because it didn't drop out of the sky fully formed. It grew out of a small, half-true fact about the body, that the act of digesting food burns a few calories of its own, and somebody ran a very long way with a very short fact. If eating burns a little energy, the reasoning went, then eating all day long must keep the furnace roaring all day long. It caught on first in the fitness and bodybuilding corner, among very lean young men on very unusual routines, and from there it got handed down to ordinary women in diet columns and morning television segments as the thing everyone simply ought to do. The trouble is that the handful of calories you burn digesting a snack is nothing set against the wall of insulin that same snack throws straight up. They held on to the small true part and lost the entire picture around it. Let me put a face on this, because the studies can go cold on you. Picture a woman, I'll call her Verna, and she's really a stand-in for a whole generation of them. 92 years old, in Loma Linda, and her kitchen still runs the way her mother's did. A big warm breakfast, oatmeal and fruit, and something cooked, eaten slow at the table while it's still early. A proper lunch in the middle of the day. And then, in the evening, almost nothing. A piece of fruit maybe, a cup of something warm, and the kitchen light goes off. She is not on a diet. She has never once in her life used the word. She'd look at you funny if you called it fasting. To her, it's simply supper time manners, the way you were raised. You don't go rummaging in the kitchen at night like you were brought up in a barn. And she's slim at 92, near enough the same shape she was at 50, in a country where that has become almost impossible, and she did it without ever once fighting her food, because the habit did the fighting for her. And walk her whole day for a second. Because the entire lesson is sitting right there inside it. She's up early, sometimes before the hunger has even arrived. And when it does arrive, it arrives at the table. On time. The way it's meant to, because last night's supper was small and a long way behind her now. The big breakfast goes in. Then the morning belongs to her, and it's a moving morning, out among the tomatoes in the yard, down the road to look in on somebody who's poorly, back up the slope to the house, and not once in any of it does she think about food, because there is nothing to think about. The kitchen's shut, she's full, she's busy, and there are people down the street who are expecting her, a real lunch at midday. Then a long and useful afternoon, and as the light begins to slant and fade, she takes her little supper, early and small, and that is the last thing to pass her lips. The dishes are done while it's still light out. The kitchen light clicks off, and the whole long evening, and the whole long night behind it, stretch out in front of her with nothing coming in at all. She isn't enduring that gap. She can't even feel it. She's asleep through the heart of it, and her body, quietly, without her lifting a finger or giving it a thought, gets on with the work. This is usually where I try to sell you something, so let me do it in one breath and get straight back to Verna. We took this whole way of eating, the Loma Linda clock and the plates from all 5 of the places people live longest, and we put it into one plain 90-day plan, the meals and the timing already worked out, so you're not left guessing. It's in the link below if you want it, and there's a code on the screen for the folks watching on the television. That's all I'll say. Now, the third piece, because we've done the morning and we've done the grazing, and the evening is where the whole thing comes together. Supper like a pauper. They ate light at night, and they ate early. Not 8 or 9 o'clock in front of the news. Late afternoon, 5, 5:30, while there was still light in the sky. A small meal, and then the kitchen closed for the night. And that does 2 things at once. It keeps the heavy food out of that sleepy evening body we already talked about. But it does something else, something the women of that town got completely for free without ever planning it. And it's the 4th piece. And it's the big one. It handed them an enormous stretch of overnight fasting. Count it out. Supper finished at 5 in the evening. Breakfast the next morning at 7. That's 14 hours, every single night, where no food went in at all, where the body was left completely alone to do its overnight repair work. Some of them, the ones who ate an early supper and a slightly later breakfast, were pushing 16, even 18 hours of nothing, night after night, for their whole lives, and not one of them thought of it as anything special. The modern world has only just rediscovered this, given it a fashionable name, and sold it back to you in apps and books. Loma Linda's grandmothers were doing it in 1940 and calling it going to bed. During that long overnight gap, with no new food coming in and insulin flat on the floor, the body finally does its housekeeping. It burns through stored fat, because there's nothing else left to reach for, and it goes through and clears out damaged, worn-out cells. A kind of deep cleaning that only runs when the kitchen has been shut for many hours. Think of it like the night cleaning crew in an office building. They can only come in and do the real work. Empty the bins, scrub the floors, haul out what's broken, after everyone's gone home and the lights are off. Keep that office lit and full of people around the clock. Keep the food coming in, and that crew never once gets through the door. The long overnight gap is the thing that finally sends everybody home so the cleaning can begin. You can't buy this in a bottle. You only get it by leaving a long, honest gap between your last bite at night and your first bite in the morning. And America, snacking until bedtime since about 1960, slammed that gap shut and hasn't opened it since. Now let me be honest with you, the way this channel tries to be, because it truly wasn't only the clock. Those women walked everywhere, all day, back when a short errand meant your own 2 feet and not a car, and none of them would ever have called it exercise. It was just how you got to the post office and home again. They kept gardens, and a garden is no gentle hobby. It's a standing daily order to bend and kneel and haul and carry, an hour here and an hour there. Most days there's light. Their bodies were in easy motion from the moment they rose, and all that motion sat right on top of a big early breakfast that had already given them something to burn. And then take the one day they didn't move much at all, because it's stranger and stronger than it first sounds. Every single week, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, the whole community simply stopped. The cooking was finished ahead of time, so no one stood working over a hot stove. The shopping didn't happen, and the money stayed in the drawer. People gathered to worship in the morning, sat down to one long, unhurried meal with family and neighbors in the afternoon, and then, more often than not, walked out into the hills together, or sat under a tree with people they had known for 60 years. One whole day in 7 where the body was handed a complete pardon from hurry, where nobody was racing a clock or bracing against the next thing. And a body granted one true day of rest a week, year after year after year, is carrying a very different load than a body that never once, not for a single afternoon, gets to set the weight down. So I won't stand here and tell you the meal timing was the one magic lever and all the rest was noise. It wasn't. It was every bit of it, braided tight together, the food and the walking, and that deep weekly rest, and the faith and the long tables full of people. But of all those threads, the clock is the single one you can reach up and take hold of tomorrow morning. With no money, no gym, and nobody's permission required. The walking helps. The rest helps more than you'd think. The timing is just the one that moves the needle first. And you have to sit for a second with what actually happened to the rest of the country, because it's the saddest part. Nobody chose to get heavier. No generation of American women woke up one day and decided to give up. What happened was that a set of habits that had quietly kept people lean for centuries got swapped out, in about a single decade, for a new set that was sold to them as progress. Convenience. The full fridge, the snack in every cupboard, the big relaxing dinner at the end of a long day. Every piece of it felt like an improvement, like the good life finally arriving. And every piece of it, quietly, was closing the door that used to let the body burn its own fat. They didn't lose their willpower around 1960. They lost the habit, and you can simply take it back. And before you do a single thing with any of this, one honest caution. Because a long stretch without food is not the right idea for everyone. If you're diabetic, if you take medication for your blood sugar, if you're on any drug that has to be swallowed with food, then a long gap without eating can genuinely cause you trouble, and the person to talk to is your own doctor, before you change anything, not after. This is the story of how one community happened to eat. It isn't a prescription, and it isn't medical advice. Take it to the people who actually know your body. And you don't take it back all at once anyway, because that's exactly how people fail at this. You don't leap to a 16-hour fast tomorrow morning and try to white-knuckle your way through it. You start with one small thing. This week, once supper's done, the kitchen's shut, the way Verna's was, and you don't wander back in. That's the whole of it. Let that one habit settle in for a week or two. Then start nudging your biggest plate earlier into the day, building the breakfast up a little. letting the dinner get a little smaller and a little earlier on its own. You're not counting a thing. You're not weighing a thing. You're just walking the clock back to where it used to sit, a little at a time, until one evening, you noticed that supper was small and early, and you slept the whole night through on an empty stomach, and you woke up genuinely hungry for a real breakfast for the first time in years. That's the habit coming home. It builds itself once you give it the first push. And if you're sitting there right now thinking, but I'm never hungry in the morning, I need you to hear this, because it's the key that unlocks the whole thing. That's not your natural body talking. That's a body that ate too much, too late, the night before, and is still busy dealing with all of it at dawn. A morning with no appetite is a symptom, not a fact about who you are. Close the kitchen early for a couple of weeks and just watch what happens. The morning hunger comes back, right on schedule, the way it did when you were young, and all of a sudden that big early breakfast isn't a chore you have to force down. It's the meal you actually want. The whole clock starts turning the right way again, on its own. Here's the thing I keep picturing. It's morning in Loma Linda, early, and the light is coming in low across a plain kitchen table. There's a warm bowl of oatmeal, some cut fruit, the biggest plate this woman will eat all day, and she's sitting down to it slow, unhurried, at the start of a day she'll spend on her feet, no snacks waiting on the counter, a light supper hours off, and then the long quiet night after it. Nothing on that table would surprise her own grandmother. That was the whole secret. It was never a diet. It was a clock, an old one, the one America was still keeping right up until it traded it away. And it's still hanging there on the wall, if you want it back. If you take more of these, the plain old habits that kept people lean and strong long before anybody was counting anything, stay close. The next one's about a food you've been told to fear your whole life, and why the people who live the longest eat it at nearly every meal.